So the purpose of the call today is to brief all of you on the status of junior lightweight rowing, and to also let you know that this evening I'm meeting with the board of directors, and I'm going to be making a recommendation to support the continuation of junior lightweight rowing moving forward. That, though, does come with a number of some reservations, as well as some recommendations that we're going to impose in terms of being able to move the program forward. With that being said, let me just provide a little bit of background and then tell you what our path forward is. What became very, very clear in the meeting with the coaches at the Youth National Championships in Sarasota about a month and a half ago is, if I made a general observation of the constituents within rowing, is I would suggest that the majority of junior clubs line up more in the path or direction of not continuing with lightweight rowing and moving more to an age-based protocol or structure. It's also very clear that within the scholastic rowing community, the high schools, that it's completely the opposite. That there's a large number of coaches and programs that support the continuation of junior lightweight rowing and do not support establishing age-based categories at our regional and national championships. What also happened at the Youth Nationals is the narrative changed. And what I mean by that is the debate up until now has very much been around competition opportunities, opportunities for athletes to join the sport of rowing, have a good competitive experience, and also be able to participate in a regional and national championships. But what changed significantly at the Youth Nationals was a recognition by everyone, an obvious recognition by everyone, that the health and well-being of our athletes is first and foremost, and competition, if you like, I don't want to say it was secondary, but it was a component, but it wasn't ultimately what was driving the direction that we're going. In addition, there was a recognition that there's a lack of protocols in place to properly monitor high school and junior lightweight rowing. For those of you that have been following this issue, you are aware that we've made recommendations or suggestions based on the Virginia Scholastic Rowing Association, and we've published that over the past year, more as reference. We also did publish a height and weight chart about a year ago, just as a guideline for coaches and administrators to begin thinking about what an actual lightweight should look like in terms of their physical profile and whatnot. What was also clear through the task force when we audited the various schools and conferences that the majority, and again, I'm not saying anybody is doing anything wrong, but that the majority really don't have a viable weight management or lightweight program in place. I think the intentions are good, but it's very, very clear that there's still work to be done. So as we move forward in making this recommendation to the board of directors, I think it's important that everybody understands what U.S. rowing is about to embrace, and also to understand the history a little bit of junior lightweight rowing. It is a category within the high school rowing community and junior rowing program that is very, very competitive. But I think many of you would recognize, and I think it was obvious in our meeting in Sarasota, that some of the practices that we've observed, whether intentional or otherwise, and I'm going to emphasize the otherwise, is that we've all seen athletes participating as lightweights that are not natural lightweights. They may have dropped 3 pounds, 5 pounds, 8 pounds to make weight to be able to compete in that category. That will no longer be acceptable in terms of the protocol that we will be launching. What's also fair to say is there's been a lack of communication, or rather education and awareness among the rowing population as to how to properly manage a program. As I said to the coaches in Sarasota, I took it at face value that every single coach that was in that tent listening to me during that presentation, they were there running a program with integrity and a program with protocols that were implemented to the best of the knowledge that each of those coaches were able to put in place. What was also acknowledged in that meeting in Sarasota is, I think there was a multiple show of hands when I asked the question of, have you seen an example within another program, in your career as a coach of potential, I'll use the word abuse, but potential deficiencies in how other programs might be run. And what I mean by that is having an athlete in the weigh-in line that clearly didn't belong there in terms of their general demeanor or physical characteristics. Or, and I'm going to talk about this in a few minutes, a coxswain standing behind a tree with a gallon jug of water trying to gain weight in preparation for a coxswain weigh-in. And there was a multiple show of hands of saying individuals have seen this. My follow-on question is, did you report it? And again, I didn't ask for people to specifically answer that, but the feedback and the debate that we had in Sarasota suggested that many of us, I would include me, have been in situations where we've observed behavior that was questionable at best, and we didn't report. So one of the directions that we will go in implementing this protocol is we will classify a violation of the policy as a safe sport violation. That means two things. That means individuals are now required to report, and that can be anonymous, and we'll have protocols in place to do that. But also, as we work our way through the next 12 months, that if there are violations in terms of how the protocol is implemented and the type of athletes that are actually participating in the regional and youth nationals next year, those will be classified as a safe sport violation. Now, there's details in terms of how we're going to do this, but I want everybody to understand that the decision or my recommendation to the board does come with some very stringent parameters and also with consequences. And again, we will classify a breach in policy as a safe sport violation. As part of implementing this, and if I go back to the Sarasota event, and I go back to my introduction a few minutes ago, is that there was a very clear difference between a junior rowing club and a high school and a scholastic program in terms of how the majority within each constituency aligned with whether we should continue with junior lightweights or not. And as I said before, within the junior rowing clubs, the vast majority of coaches and administrators have been pushing very, very hard to move away from junior lightweight rowing and to move in a different direction. But within the scholastic rowing community, it's been a very different story and narrative. It's been very much, we want to continue to support junior lightweights, and we want to do it with the appropriate protocols. And that to me was a bit of a game changer in terms of my presentation and how I saw the jurisdiction of U.S. rowing. Just so we're all clear, U.S. rowing has oversight of the national championships, youth nationals, and of our regional championships. We do not have formal oversight of the scholastic rowing community. We're good friends, we work well together, but in terms of jurisdiction over the rules and the protocols that are put in place, U.S. rowing does not have a position in terms of its oversight or jurisdiction. With that being said, in Sarasota, when I asked the question for the high school coaches to please identify themselves, and there were at least 30 plus that put their hand up, I then asked the follow-on question that would you accept U.S. rowing involvement and oversight in implementing a policy for high school lightweight rowing? Not a single hand dropped. And for me, that was very, very important, because what I think we now recognize is an opportunity to influence a positive, constructive outcome for all junior and high school athletes, and not just the constituency that are part of our junior rowing club. I may be splitting hairs on that statement, but I think when you think about high school rowing or junior rowing in this country, again, as I said before, we don't have complete jurisdiction. We have partnerships, but we're not really at the table in terms of some of the details of the rules and of lightweight rowing. So in implementing this policy, the policy that we will implement will be in cooperation with the scholastic rowing community as well. And what we intend to do is a couple of things. I'm sure Dorothy is on the phone as the executive director of the Virginia Scholastic Rowing Association. But I spent time with Dorothy the week after I came back from the youth nationals to really understand and understand the protocols for what Virginia is offering. I'm not saying that's the final, but that's clearly an option that is being considered. But this process in terms of protocol is not being managed by me as the CEO of US Rowing. It's being managed by our sports medicine and science committee. I've met over the past couple of weeks with Dr. Joe Hannafin, who's the chair of that committee, and we've not landed on a final protocol. We are in the process of working through over the course of the next 4 weeks what that protocol will be. But when we do launch the protocol, it will come with a requirement that athletes, programs participating in the Youth National Championship Series, which includes our regionals, will have to adhere to that, to those protocols. So again, we're still working through what this is exactly going to look like, but we're also going to commit from a US Rowing standpoint the resources to manage it, but we're also going to require or impose an obligation that all programs that will compete in our events or these events will have to follow the protocol. And there'll be some options that we'll explore as we implement that. What we will also do is with all club administrators, as well as all athletic directors within the clubs and within the various high schools and scholastic programs, is we will begin to message that these protocols exist. And we'll also begin to, we also establish what I'm going to call is a weight management education program. And this particular point transcends youth rowing. Many of you have sent emails asking about the impact of collegiate lightweight rowing, and there have been a few as it relates to elite rowing, call it the national team. And I think what we've come to recognize is, while there's been a lot of passion and debate about the junior lightweight topic, the issue transcends our sport. And what we have not done as an NGB, as US Rowing, has done a consistent job of really educating our membership, and that's coaches, administrators, athletes, about what a proper weight management program, how it should be structured, and how it should be managed. So you will see, beginning in September, October, a concerted effort by US Rowing with members of our sports medicine and science committee and other experts to really begin to communicate, begin to educate about a weight management program, but more importantly, for us to all to understand the pros and the cons. As I talked about in Sarasota, a young woman, 16, 17 years of age, that artificially reduces her weight in order to qualify in a boat, is exposing herself to long-term risk, 10, 15 years later, when she may want to start a family. Young men, reducing their weight 5, 10, 15 pounds, and I've heard those stories when I stood, alongside some of the athletes that are weighing in, also have very serious long-term health consequences. So all of those are being considered as we begin to move forward with this process, because I do believe that if we say no, we're not going to support lightweight rowing, that there's still going to be a constituency, still a significant constituency that's going to continue to run the program for all sorts of good intentions. So I think through education, we can begin to inform the athletes, coaches, administrators, and I would also add the parents as to what the pros and cons are of participating in a lightweight program. What's also very clear to me is there are a group of athletes, a significant group of athletes, that are natural lightweights. And those are absolutely the athletes that we are catering to. We are not catering to the athlete that's 5 pounds overweight at the beginning of the season and trying to sweat down to make it into the boat. To me, that behavior is no longer acceptable. This is all about the athletes that fit the norms and can still get their Big Mac as they're driving to the youth nationals and not have to worry about making weight. So as we do this, again, we're catering to that specific group of individuals. But we're also, and coming back to the education, we're also will begin to implement a program where we want to educate all of our membership and even non-members about establishing a proper weight management program and addressing the pros and cons of what that program should be. About the collegiate rowing, I believe that by taking this step, not only do we address the future of our junior lightweight athletes and do it in a healthy, constructive manner, but I also believe we have an opportunity to now begin to influence behavior at the collegiate level. And just for the record, U.S. Rowing has no jurisdiction over collegiate athletics. We have good partnerships, but our jurisdiction, that we do have is really limited to race management in our partnership with the IRAs and whatnot, but we have no direct involvement in how the programs are managed, let alone how the lightweight programs are managed. But I do believe through our education that we can begin to influence a positive outcome within the collegiate athletic programs as well. And to me, that's part of the longer term picture, but I believe by making this decision to support, we have the positive effects with our collegiate athletes as well. And then the final component of the effects is looking at our elite athlete programs. And again, through education, athletes can continue to make the right decisions in terms of being part of a lightweight program, whether they're rowing high school, collegiate, or elite. The other component that we're going to introduce, and this is working towards the end of the year, but we will introduce a new chapter or a new section, if you like, into U.S. Rowing's Level 2 program that will specifically address weight management. We will make this part of our overall coaching education program. And under Susan's leadership, working with Chris Korzanowski and other members of the team, we will bring in the experts to create that curriculum, that information, and make that part of the fabric of the Level 2 coaching program itself. And that also then allows us to speak to an additional point that I referenced, which is coxswains. Again, we've covered high school athletes, we've covered the collegiate athletes, but we also have an issue with our coxswains. That issue is reverse, meaning that we have athletes that are increasing their weight for the weigh-in window, and in that 1 or 2 hour window post weigh-in, they're behind the tree trying to lose those extra pounds that they indulge through a gallon of water or whatever it is. And that comes back to the overall education. So weight management isn't just about managing your weight so that you can row as a lightweight. There's also managing your weight so that you can participate as a coxswain. So the irony of this junior lightweight topic is it's really forced a debate, and I think a very, very good debate inside U.S. Rowing that's touched many, many parts of our sport. There's the overall weight management, and this transcends the juniors. As I said, the collegiate athletes, the elites, and coxswains across the board. It's also forced a narrative around how we structure our events as well. And what I want to get into, and I'm responding to a couple of questions here, is there's been discussion around whether we should go age-based versus lightweight. Should we continue with intermediate, senior, and all those topics? If we follow the trajectory of this debate to last year, we did a look at the overall structure of our program. Part of it was to understand what other countries are doing relative to lightweight rowing, but it also influenced a debate around age-based versus the intermediate and seniors. And you'll see, and I'm not going to get into it in this call now, but you'll see some, I believe, positive outcomes in terms of how we move forward with our U15, U17s, our youth nationals, and as well as our national championships as well. And a lot of the information that we're drawing from is based on the research that started about a year and a half ago with the Junior Lightweight Task Force. I will also hasten to add that we are the United States, and I'm not saying that as an arrogant comment. And what I mean by that is we can learn from other countries, but we are not going to be the other countries. We're going to put the program in place that makes sense for US, for our high school athletes and for our club athletes. But we can definitely learn from the experiences of the countries that we talk to and that we gathered information from. There'll be more on that specific trajectory in terms of what our events look like for next year in the coming months. But I want those of you that have been part of this process, whether directly or indirectly, to know that this debate around the junior lightweights has actually helped to influence what I believe will be some very positive and constructive changes to our sport as we move forward. That is the monologue. What I'm going to do now is I did receive a number of questions in advance of this, which I'm going to go through and make sure that I've checked all the boxes. But I'm going to close my monologue with a very definitive statement so that there's no avoidance of doubt as to where we're going as U.S. rowing. So my recommendation as a CEO tonight to the board of directors is to support junior lightweight rowing for the foreseeable future. And I say foreseeable future because we will implement protocols. We will require that you participate in those protocols, so there will be no exceptions in terms of the registrations in these various events or whatnot. But we're doing this for the fact that I believe we can influence a positive outcome across our sport, including the high school athletes, as well as through education, collegiate, and beyond. I also believe that we owe it to the community to go for this. There's a lot of passion in this topic, and I will say that as I've been going through this process myself, I was leaning towards moving away from junior lightweights. And I was also say that a big part of the influence was our jurisdiction over the clubs and the direction that we were going in our discussions and whatnot. The game changer on this for me is, as we've worked our way through the process, is we have a very positive opportunity in front of us to make sure that our young athletes have a great experience in terms of their introduction to the sport. They have a healthy experience throughout the process, and that all of you and all of us will be the eyes and ears of making sure that this program works, and that there will be consequences if we find ourselves in a situation where we have a program that deviates from the policy and we have unhealthy practices for our athletes. But I believe this is worth going for. I also believe that U.S. rowing will commit resources to this, which will come at a cost, because we're in active discussions with USA Wrestling, as well as with VASTRA, with the school district, who've actually set up the protocols on the back end. But we will need to make some investments in the coming months on how this program is managed. It's not going to be based on Coach Patrick McNerney signing a form saying that, I'm just looking at my table here, that athlete Susan Smith qualifies as a junior lightweight and has met the protocols. That's not good enough. We currently have protocols in place for our national team, where on an annual basis, athletes provide their EKGs. Those go into a database, and we have actually a medical panel that reviews them. And if we have a challenge or a question, we deal with those in the context of the athlete and the medical professionals dealing with them. I envisage something along those lines where it's not just a simple sign of form, but we will require some substance in terms of the validation of how all this works. That's going to put the burden on U.S. rowing from a liability and management standpoint. It's also going to put the burden on you, the club administrators, the coaches, to implement these programs as well. Again, we'll be more clear on what those programs look like over the next 4 weeks or so. There's still some more work to be done behind the scenes. So looking at the comments that I received, and this is in no particular order, I'm just kind of working my way through the list. There were questions related about the impact of collegiate and elite lightweight rowing, and I believe that's been addressed. There were questions related to safe sport and how we envisage a violation. I've addressed that. There were a couple of comments that, and again, the rumor mill is rampant within our sport, and I love it. But I did receive a couple of comments in the past couple of days that I think some people were indicating that U.S. rowing was leaning in favor of supporting lightweights and that this was a cave. It is not a cave because I believe that we have an opportunity to influence a constructive outcome in an area that we didn't have it before. What I will say is as we move forward, we will collectively review this on an annual basis. So as far as if I can use the word instruction to the events team and working with the board, we're committing ourselves to junior lightweight rowing for the future. But we will evaluate on an annual basis. And if these protocols don't work, or if we find ourselves in a situation next summer where it just didn't, we had our issues, then we will reevaluate. But I am confident that with your support and the support of the staff and the various committees, I think it's an opportunity for us to support that. I just got a comment from somebody, not a cave. Thank you. And again, I'm just reading from the various notes that I've received. I'm going to ask a question of Susan. Is there an opportunity, Susan, to unmute this at the right time?
Yeah.
Okay, not yet. Let me do my monologue first. But I will, when we have a few minutes left, I'm going to try to unmute. There's 221 people on the call. I may be asking for chaos, but if there's a topic that's missing, I'll try to, in a constructive manner, allow people to speak. It was also sort of in the protocol at the beginning. I should have mentioned that we did record this call, so we will publish that and make that available for anybody else that's available. There was also questions about promoting this moving forward. I think once I have board approval and we have our protocols in place, we will message a positive, a message around junior lightweight rowing, with all the caveats that I talked about over the past half hour. What I did say in the meeting in Sarasota, and I put my hand up for it, is there have been a lot of discussions that have taken place over the course of the past year. And a lot of that is in email form, is in phone calls, in surveys, in terms of my discussions with coaches and whatnot. Not all of it has been published on the website. I mean, I think there's been a lot of good information that's been made available. But as we bring this topic to a close and as we move forward, I will make certain that any meeting minutes, of which I have meeting minutes here in front of me from the meeting that we had in Sarasota, the results of the survey that we sent out, of which over 2,500 of you responded a couple of weeks ago, and any other documentation, I will work with the team here to make sure it's all available on our website so that people can review it, and ask any questions. So there's a lot of moving parts inside this organization. I think in hindsight, I could have done a little bit better job of publishing the survey and whatnot, but I will make certain that all is available to anybody that is interested. There's also questions about, are BMI tests the right test versus other protocols? And this is what I'm asking the Sports Science, Medicine and Science Committee to evaluate. So again, that'll be a question that we answer as part of the, when we launch our protocol, but it's not Patrick McNerney, pretend medical profession that's going to put those protocols together. It's actually going to be led by Dr. Hannafin with relevant experts from the medical community to establish this. I'm just sort of looking through my list here. And I think those were sort of the major questions that were addressed. There's a board meeting tonight. I will have a more condensed version of this in the presentation to the board. I know there are a couple of board members on this call as well. And I'll follow up as appropriate off the back of that. But my expectation is in the coming days, we'll post a short confirmation in terms of the direction that we're going. and then a timeline for publishing the protocols. We do have a board meeting scheduled again it's either the first or second week of September. So that basically means that probably somewhere around the 15th of September, we'll formally publish what the protocols are. From the education standpoint, the webinars and the articles will be published. That schedule will be published, and those will take place sort of in the fall, winter, and that'll be on usrowing.org. And then I also want to add that at the convention in Philadelphia, so that's second weekend in December of this year, we will have a specific track or seminar or whatever we want to call it, specific to weight management. And then I'll work with the team here on how we might break that down so that we also have a specific area of focus that targets our high schools and junior programs. Again, details on that to be determined, but if you haven't booked your convention, I think we'll be announcing registration in the next couple of weeks, but just know that will be one of the features of the Philadelphia convention later on this year. Okay, what I am going to do now is, you're all sick of hearing my voice. There's 217 of you on the call. I'm going to unmute all, and we're going to do our best to take any questions. And if you hear another voice, please wait your turn. I've got plenty of time, even though we're only booked for an hour, if anybody wants to speak at length. But let's see what we can do here. So Susan, if you could unmute, please.
Okay.
Okay, all participants are now unmuted. Does anybody have the first question or comment? I cannot. Okay, I'm not hearing anything.
Do you want to ask Mike?
Okay, I'm going to do a test. Mike Baker, if you're on the call, can you just say hello? I just want to make sure I can hear you.
Talking permitted.
Yeah. Mike Baker, if you're on the call, can you just say hello?
He's snoozing.
Okay, okay. Then just click on that one there. Okay, I got a message from Jack Nicholas. I'm just going to look at your email. So hold on.
This is Mike Baker.
I'm just scrolling down. I'll tell you, we're just using chat, so just chat your question if that's the right word to use it. There's a question about height, and yes, height will definitely be a factor. Again, I'm not going to speak to the details of what the protocol, but we're not going to have 6'2" individuals queuing up to be weighing in as a male lightweight. Okay, so the new protocol. So we will announce the new protocol by the middle of September. It will be put in effect this winter, and it'll be a prerequisite going into spring of 2020. I'm just looking at the list here. Sorry, this is going pretty quickly. Okay, so the question about diversity and inclusion. Again, I'm happy to address that topic, but I think part of what we're trying to do here with the continuation of supporting lightweight rowing is to offer everyone who qualifies a pathway to participate in the sport of rowing and to do it in a health and safe manner. So I'm hoping that answers that question. There's actually a much bigger topic around diversity inclusion, which goes well beyond lightweight rowing, which is a big area of focus for all of us. And if you want to talk to me separately, just reach out to me, patrick.mcnerney@usrowing.org. Punishment for violation. We do have protocols in place in terms of safe sport. I don't have the details exactly on how we're going to deal with this, but as part of our coaching certification program, which right now is voluntary, but in a situation where a coach is certified, there could be a suspension. We also have a number of other consequences that we deal with, but suffice it to say, a violation in terms of that affects the health and safety of our athletes will be dealt with be very serious consequences in terms of how we deal with that. Somebody's asking about the VASRA. When I post a short update tomorrow, I will republish the link to the VASRA web protocols. That was in the announcement back in June, and that was in an article that we published last year. But I'll make sure that's part of what we do. The protocols for reporting violations, again, we'll use a safe sport procedures for doing that, which is currently on usrowing.org. But as we move forward, we'll make sure that we have a clear, very clear workflow in terms of how individuals can report. Again, consideration of violation, I've not defined that yet. Again, some of the questions that are being asked will take us a few weeks to work through. But suffice it to say, in taking this step, we're making a serious commitment to making certain that the programs are safe and that their consequences are appropriate. Board approval versus official. I'm the CEO of US Rowing. I'd like to think I can, this does need board support. And the reason I say that is we are dealing with a liability question and we're dealing with health and safety.
They're keeping
but I'm confident that I will have the support of the board of directors to do this. I mean, there's been a lot of discussions that we've had in the background on this topic, and I would not be representing this
it's like you're
if I
going to
didn't
be a natural lightweight or you're not rowing lightweight.
board of directors. September 15th is a target date for publishing the protocols. And again, I'm just reading the scroll as it comes through. The link to the VA protocol is broken. We'll address that separately. Okay, can you mute everybody again? So we're just going to mute everybody.
That's fine.
Yeah. There's a question being asked, are we being asked to expand the number of lightweight events at the Nationals? That question is premature. As it stands right now, and what I mean by that is we're committing ourselves to the current slate of events, but we've not had a chance to reevaluate 2019. And what I mean by that is the number of events, the entries, and so on and so forth. That is a process that we've already started. But as I say this, we have one more national championship to complete, which is the Masters. But we are evaluating the structure of our events for next year. And the number of lightweight events and whatnot clearly will be on the agenda for that. But again, it's a bit premature to address that. There was also a question here about the actual coxswain weights. I know some of you approached me and others of my team. We are looking at that as well. And if I'm not mistaken on the issue is we have one coxswain weight for juniors, which is the same as for adults. I'm not going to answer the question because I don't have it, but I do know it's an active discussion. I will also remind everyone that in August, we published the opportunity for members to make recommendations around rule changes. So keep an eye on that because we will be publishing our recommendations as it relates to weigh-in procedures and so on. So keep an eye on it. And if you see anything that's missing, I invite you to submit. Somebody's asking me if a 6'2" kid is a natural lightweight. Again, I'm going to defer to the protocols, which I'm not prepared to address yet. I do believe 6'2" is a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to say that, prove it. Not to be flippant, but this is where the medical commission will come into play. The board meeting's tonight. So I will publish an announcement tomorrow morning in terms of what the final status is. Okay, there's questions about having a certified nutritionist on staff. Again, questions that are being raised about protocols and whatnot. I'm going to defer on all of that. We will publish guidelines about how to manage your program. We'll publish the protocols that we're going to require, but there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of finessing the details. But I think what's important today is that for all of you and for the general rowing public that are interested in this topic, that there's no uncertainty about what we're doing next year. Junior lightweight rowing will remain as part of the fabric of the regional and national championships next year. Somebody's asking about register regattas and trying to make sure we're consistent about the weights and whatnot, yes, there needs to be consistency across the board. What I need to be very careful about is, there's protocols that we control, the regional championships and the youth nationals. I do need to speak to my counterparts at the various scholastic rowing associations about how we navigate through all of this. There have been discussions to date, but now the rubber hits the road, if you like, over the next couple of weeks. Again, questions about weigh-in protocols. These are all good questions, and we will keep the chat and make sure that we weigh through it all. But again, there's some protocol questions here which we still need to address. And again, I'm going to actively work with our sports medicine and science committee on how we do all this. Somebody who's 5'9", 150 said thank you. I'll accept that. Again, we have a lot of work to do. And this individual also reinforced the importance of management. That's just not U.S. rowing, but it's going to be all of you and everybody that's interested in supporting lightweights, is that we all have to own this and be accountable for implementing a proper program and a proper protocol. So we have a bit of time. We're still at the end of July. We have 11 months, or 10 and a half months to the Youth Nationals next year in Sarasota. But we will publish our protocols by the middle of September, and then we will have a proactive education program and whatnot that will also kick off with that. There are also some questions being asked about programs that do not have necessarily the financial resources. That is a consideration that we all need to think about. But I would make the argument that the health and well-being of an athlete is first and foremost. And if we cannot implement a program to do that, then we have to figure out a way to do it. And again, I don't have an answer on how we do that today, but I don't believe we can have shortcuts. At the end of the day, if an athlete is ill or heaven forbid dies, which is what's happened in wrestling a few times over their history, there's no stepping back from that situation. So I appreciate that resources will be an issue for some programs. I don't have an answer on how we deal with it, and maybe this is something that the local rowing community, and because I know Dorothy, I'm going to pick on Dorothy because, but if within the Virginia Scholastic Rowing Association, there's a particular program that doesn't have the resources to implement an appropriate program, maybe the local community can somehow come together to support that. I'm just throwing that out as a what if, and I'm not putting Dorothy or anybody in Vastra on the hook for that. Again, I'm being asked questions now about adding events. I'm going to defer on those to the events team, but again, the question here is about a straight 4. Again, questions about whether this is going to price out particular organizations. Again, there will be some financial consequences on how we deal with this. I have no idea what those are going to be. I don't think they're going to be onerous, but we do need to make certain that in doing this, we have the right infrastructure in place at U.S. Rowing, as well as at the various clubs that are going in high schools that are going to be participating. Again, I don't know what that is, and I have no idea yet even how we're going to deal with that. I mean, this may be dealt with in the context of how each of you participate as part of your overall membership to U.S. Rowing, and this is becomes a service that we provide. So again, we have different ways that we're going to spread share the love on this, and I appreciate the comments here. So again, I'm just going to keep reading until the chat dies down, because I think everybody shares a passion for this. As you all, I'm not going to take it personally as you all want to drop off, but let's consider this the end of the call, although we will continue to record. And I'm just going to continue to read the chat and respond to the questions as best that I can. Again, question about weight limits. I mean, there is a view that going into next year, we're not changing the weight limits. it remains at the 130, 150. We continue with what was established a couple of years ago, and that we focus on establishing the appropriate protocols. Because irregardless of whether we're 145, 150, 155, there's always going to be that line. I think for purposes of 2020, the weight caps remain the same. Yes, we do. Question about, does U.S. rowing have jurisdiction over indoor rowing? And yes, the protocols that we put in place will apply. Now, we do not have junior lightweight rowing in indoor rowing. That wasn't part of the event that was introduced over the past 2 years, and is currently not part of the plans for the indoor championships on the 1st of March. I suspect I'm going to get feedback to that statement. But anyway, that's where we currently are. Again, just some comments on indoor rowing. I'm going to keep watching this for another 2 or 3 minutes to give everybody that final chance at questions. And I will keep going if I get more. Otherwise, we will end this call in 4 minutes, which I believe is on schedule. Okay. I could start singing as well. That would drive everybody crazy. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. So I will post a brief update tomorrow morning on usrowing.org. And I will make certain that the update will be simple, but we will address all the questions and everything that I said in the coming weeks. And I'm looking at Susan, but I'll make sure that the post tomorrow morning has the link, to this full conference call. And again, I think people are starting to brainstorm about some ideas, which is great. And we'll continue to invite feedback as we go forward. So I guess to summarize, my recommendation tonight is to move forward. We have a lot of work to do over the next couple of months. Every one of you that's had a voice, and others, I really look forward to your support and participation. And I'm not going to call you out, but I want to meet you. But the young lady at Miami Beach Rowing Club, on my next trip to Florida, which will be soon, I would like to meet you and your constituents. I've been interviewed by at least 2 forms of media in the Miami area. I think what the change.org, last time I checked, was about 13 or 14,000. It does show that we have a voice, and also we do listen. So, 16,500. All right. All right. Now my next question is, again, we're going to do this together. I appreciate the support. We have 1 minute to go. Questions, comments? Otherwise, please visit usrowing.org by tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern. Just note that the website that we currently have is a bit of a dinosaur. We've crashed it a few times over the past few months, specifically on this topic. The good news is we're relaunching usrowing.org in about a month. And I don't anticipate we'll have those types of technical issues at that point in time. And then my final plug to you is, as we really try to move our sport forward, this is now a shameless plug for US Rowing. I hope all of you watched US Rowing's coverage of the Under-23 Championships on ESPN3 over the weekend. If you did not, please do so between now and the end of August. And I welcome comments about our production values or not. But we're already in discussions about our partnership with ESPN for next year. And I'm expecting some positive news that impact all of our rowing constituents in terms of the partnership. But I would love feedback in terms of what the team did, and then also any comments and whatnot. So anyway, that's a shameless plug for moving us out of the bubble. All right, it is now 1 o'clock Eastern. we are finished with the webinar, or the monologue rather. So I want to thank everyone for their time. I'm not sure if we're able to participate in a list of everyone that dialed in, but I think at its peak there were about 239, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if we'll do it like an individual club list, not, from a privacy standpoint, but we'll figure out a way to message where we got input and whatnot. So again, I thank everybody for their participation, for your passion, and more importantly, I thank all of you for supporting us as we move forward, because this program will be a success with your help. So thank you very much. And if you have any more comments, patrick.mcnerney@usrowing.org, and I'll do my best to respond in a timely manner. Thanks a lot. Have a good afternoon.